Good morning. So as promised, I was going to bring you some hard examples of how and why quality Morgans, show Morgans, registered Morgans of any kind end up at auction. I'm going to say up front that for some of you, you might feel like this is a call out of people. Maybe in a way it is. I'm kind of more hoping that you're taking it as a lesson. And there's an accountability factor regardless. In this time, I guess I feel the questions of how and why should be less and less with so much going out there on social media. I also feel that there's so many people out there willing to help beforehand, before you feel like there's this last chance, that for me, the not knowing is becoming really not good enough, because it's an expensive journey to redo and try and do right for these horses who really just didn't have a chance. They didn't have a say in what was going to happen. And over the past couple months, it's just gotten really blatant. And there's plenty of examples out there, and we've shared them, success stories, people who truly didn't know and found themselves in need and didn't have a better choice or another solution at the time, or maybe they reached out and we were able to help. But nobody wants to talk about sorry, I have a cat that's trying to help me. Nobody wants to talk about the stories where it's a choice. Someone consciously chose to go this route and take a shortcut, really, and it wasn't in the best interest for the horses. And it's more about, in this particular example, we truly kind of started off thinking this was just a naive mistake. How could it be possible? Maybe he truly wanted his horses back. But the more that came out about it, it was clear that it just wasn't a truth. And people put a lot of bearing, a lot of trust into people who are someone in the industry. And maybe if it feels wrong, you should question it. Maybe if something just doesn't seem right, you should question it. It's not about having total faith in someone and telling yourself it's going to be okay, because I'll tell you, of all the ways to sell a horse, probably auction is the least favorite. And I've been there. I've been on the other side to try and get them back, and then there's rehab, and it takes a lot out of them. Both these horses are just exhausted. They knew each other. They've been talking to each other since they got off the trailer, and they heard each other. And it stresses a family. Yeah, it takes time to look and interview and find the right person who's a match for the horse you're selling. But that doesn't mean it's impossible. That's what a lot of these groups are doing at the back end of it. But we're going through a huge expense to get them back, to rehab them, to get them back where they were, to even be at a point where they can be ready for someone to even look at. And there's stress that has to go on these older horses, and this is another example of how, had we not been able to get them, had we not been able to see, had they not run through where they ran through, where would they end up? Because there's no bearing on the papers to protect them. There's not going to be a transfer. Who knows who bought them? Who knows what will happen? They just get lost in the system and become another horse. All these horses, even though they went through with copies of their registration papers on the Coggins through the sale barn, they're marked as quarter horses. And that's frustrating. Because at any point in time that paper gets lost, they become a quarter horse to the next person. And so on and so on. So these examples, if the people who are close to the people who are part of this situation, if you feel it's a call out, I guess I apologize in advance. Maybe it's a little bit of frustration. On the other side of it, this happened around people who would have been very willing to step up. There was 4. One's gone. We know the truth that we're told. We don't know if it's the truth. And it's going to be hard to know if she'll ever be found and why. So, I guess on with the story. These are the ones who are really telling it. I'm just relaying it. So, first up was this black mare. And her registered name was not a secret. It was out there. It was on the Bowie Livestock Kill Pen. She was with a senior pony, which she probably didn't know until she got to auction, but they kind of took care of each other. We had to let the pony go, for those of you who aren't following. That left her. Her registered name is CBS Christiana. And yes, we are in touch with the Galvins, who are a prior owner, and she will be going home to them when she's ready to travel. As the story unfolded, I knew that Jennifer Galvin had been talking with the prior owner of Christiana. I know that she had expressed interest in getting Christiana back and was told that she was retired and enjoying life in pasture. As more came out, there were other horses. Turns out there was 3 other horses that had gone through the sale, and 2 of them are 12-year-olds. One is the chestnut mare standing next to her, and the other was the gelding, and then there was a 21-year-old registered world champion reigning mare. And so as it was going, as the story was going, it was seeming like it was an accident. He was away, he didn't understand, he wanted his horses back. Not knowing the sensitivity of it, because sometimes we give everybody the benefit of the doubt. When we find a horse that's registered, we don't make any judgments whatsoever. We go through it openly, we go back and we try and see if there's any history if they're wanting their horse back, if they even realize what happens. But in the experience, it's been a sensitive subject to attain. And at this point, knowing we were only 4 days in from getting Chrissy back, time was of the essence. We assumed that they went to another broker somewhere, the other three. So I had someone local call the auction house, and the only one that they would relay that buyer information to was the prior owner. And being an older gentleman, sometimes it's not as easily receptive when you call. So I was trying to reach out to some friends locally in the area who might know him and felt comfortable to call, which we found. Within, it was at least an hour, if not sooner, we had the broker name and number of the person who bought, who was, again, someone who attends, because there is no one else at these auctions. They're mostly dealers and brokers who buy and resell. Can't blame them, because they get them at a decent price to resell. And whether that is going to the border for meat or whether that's going to a home, it really doesn't matter to them as long as they can flip some money. It's easy money. It's profitable. Why not do it? And there's a need. There's more horses going through unwanted than there are seemingly homes for them. That doesn't change the fact that, our breed is small as it is. And every Morgan should matter. Not that any other breed should be considered less. But again, you question why. So I was able to call the dealer and get an answer. He had this sorrel mare who hadn't sold yet. Her registered name is OFS Lady of the Stage. Trained Western horse, finished supposedly, 12-year-old. Stage Rage, Hollybrook Stage Rage baby, going back to Harlequin, which I'm a Harlequin fan, so was a little bit partial to. And then I was told that the other 12-year-old, the gelding, who is OFS Noble Rage, he's the one that has a little bit of a cough and a snotty nose. He was sold to someone in North Dakota, and they might be willing to sell him. My theory is, if they were willing to sell the horse back, it probably wasn't a home. And that's how I stated it to the broker. I told him, if this is a home, great. If they're willing to sell him and it's just another dealer, then we'll buy him back. And lo and behold, his price came back. So we were able to purchase both back at a cost, not a broker cost, not what they got through auction. The gelding, what they got him for was $700. Chrissy was $350. This mare was $350. I'm not sure what the other mare went for, but seeing as a receipt was shared, I'm guessing she might have gotten $400 through auction. I will tell you that was not what we paid for them. And that's all I'll share at this point. That will come out later after we evaluate. So we got them back because the important thing that I feel is what these horses all went through auction with was a copy of the papers. There's a copy of the papers. There's no signed transfer. It's just papers, copies. All of them, just copies. It was a conscious decision because also included in the two 12-year-olds we got was a veterinary exam for soundness on December 27th. The auction was January 1st. So it was no longer about, remember, we're trying to help. We're trying to get these horses from being in a bad location, because our first example with Chrissy was the Bowie Kill Pen, who will ship. Luckily, she was seen. So there was the fear that these other 3 had met the same fate. And we were reaching out to Pryors to help. And more of the story unfold, we were just getting lied to. Which is too bad. I lost my train of thought. Apologize. So, it's frustrating in that regard, but where do papers come into play at this point? You know, people will buy these horses through these small auctions and not know what it is or how to get in touch with anybody. All you have is a copy and the address. Maybe they got their phone number if they asked, if they wanted it. Chances are they wouldn't. So had the gelding gone to North Dakota, even if it was a home, which if it was, they probably wouldn't have sold him, he wouldn't have been, there would have been no transfer. So how does that count? How is that accountability for having a horse? Yeah, okay, so he's a gelding. But then where's the excuse for the mare? So it was important to get them back in and find them the right spot where they would still be validated. They will still be part of the breed's support. They will still be in the right spot. That was important. It's important to us to promote and perpetuate the breed, right? So how is that helping? It's not. And I think the big kick in the shoulder was after all this transpired and, you know, wanting to get back. And mind you, I didn't talk to the former owners. I did send an email because that was given to us from the auction house. No response, and it was a friendly one. I just needed him to help with the broker information, and you know, if there was anything he needed in the future instead of this route, we would help remarket his horses properly. I mean, we can do what we can do, but I did get a voicemail after all this, knowing full well that Jennifer had been in touch with them and knew that this mare Chrissy was going home, and he acted like we didn't have that conversation, and he was desperate to find these horses, and he's been looking for the mare since, in this case Chrissy, he was looking for her since she left. I'm sorry, but I find that hard to believe. And again, this goes back to, they are the unfortunate example in this situation. But these are situations that I have dealt with before, and it's done no good to keep quiet. I don't know if it'll do any good to speak up, but I'm hoping that as buyers and sellers, you realize that as soon as, and that goes for us too, we've made mistakes. We do our best to try and match horses, but at the end of the day, even if they go with contract, even, it's a piece of paper. It's not going to stop someone thousands of miles away from making a decision that they want to make if they get upset or if they change their mind. So it comes down to the work of being proactive and building a relationship and trying to find the right match. And I guess what hurts the most is just being lied to when you're trying to help. So I think it's more of a case where maybe they did come on hard times and they needed to clear out based on, they're not in terrible condition. Maybe they just didn't have time to do right. But there was also so many people around them, it sounds like, that knew of the family, that was willing to help. And there are so many ways to contact other organizations and find out more ways to help just on social media alone, that I find it hard to believe that more people aren't acting on this. There's no shame in asking for help, I guess. There shouldn't be anyway. Not when you're trying to be a good steward to these animals. And I'm not trying to reach the ones who disagree with me. I'm not trying to reach the ones who think that what he did was fine and dandy. I'm not trying to change anybody's mind. I am trying to answer, how does this happen? Why does this happen? And hopefully get people to be a lot more active owners. If something doesn't feel right, 9 times out of 10, it's wrong. So you should ask more questions. You should look for more options, look for more solutions, try something else. This auction takes a lot out of them. They're run through, they're mishandled, they're separated from what they know, something they're familiar with. I will say both of the 12-year-olds probably will get treated for ulcers first. And I think these two alone were probably pasture mates for a while before they decided. But there was a conscious decision here to bring them to auction. The last one, I guess, is most upsetting to me. As hard as I tried, she was 21 years old, apparently well known in her area, and she pretty much took this owner to the world championships and made him who he is today. And I have a hard time with it because now she's 21, probably sent through with the same copies of papers, show record, told by the broker that she went to a good home that is safe. But again, as the buyer-seller, you're limited to what you can find out and what they want to share. And I explained the mare's situation and who she was and the relevance to why I just wanted to reach out and communicate to the new owner, especially in case she doesn't work out. And it was something that some people just aren't willing to share or share our information with them. So we couldn't get her back. They wanted to supposedly keep her, and hopefully She is in a good place, supposedly still local to Kentucky. But who knows? You don't know the truth. And that's where you have to leave it. I did leave him my information. I sent my information in a note with the check to let him know that if she does come back through, that we would like to buy her back. I don't know if that's possible. I don't know if, again, this video will help or hurt that situation. But again, it's an example of the limits. Once it's done, it's done. And, you don't know. The mayor who sad about sharing, but again, world champion reigner, Akila's Katie Courage. So she's out there somewhere local to Kentucky. I don't know if they understand what they got. It sounds like this dealer does a lot with quarter horses, very little with Morgans, very few come through. Copy of papers, again, isn't probably going to transfer anywhere. So hopefully she's out there. So what this begins is a series of talk about not just the good stories, the ones who want to fight them back for real, but situations of auction where horses get put through that don't necessarily need to go that route first. And maybe being open to your neighbor, being open to ask questions to see if people are okay, checking in on horses you used to have, checking in on horses that ran through auction that you might be interested in, repurposing smartly, because today it's true. There's one phrase I hear a lot, and not knowing anymore is not good enough. So I challenge you, anyone, even though this might not seem right, if you need to rehome your horse, your senior, our information's out there. MorganSafeNet.com. We can try and help relist. The amount of people we get calls on that maybe don't want to take a chance on something and maybe are looking for something a little less, if you think about it, if you were willing to let your horse go through auction to unknown for $350, and there was a home out there that was a perfect fit for that horse, that it could stay in the Morgan family, it could be registered, we could get more people joining, we could get members, more people showing or just enjoying for pleasure, and it didn't have to go through the stress of auction, which promotes a rehab and sickness expense, I think that's a much better option and much better for the horses. So you can call it what you want, but the lessons are starting, the examples are going to come out, and being quiet isn't good enough anymore. So I'm offering help, I'm offering solutions. Morgan SafeNet is as a whole, and there's plenty of other people out there fighting for different breeds doing the same thing. There's other ways, there's support. I guess we have to start doing better.